Hey, I screwed up and I lost part of the video for this week. I have all the audio, but there's going to be a point in this video version where it's just going to be still faces. And we'll be talking, but we're not going to be moving because I screwed up. Sorry.
Elden Ring.
Nope.
I have a countdown on my whiteboard, and I've had one student figure out what the countdown is for.
Nice. Did you give that student an A?
No, I just whispered to him, "Good job. Don't tell anyone."
Welcome to 3Play, where three friends make a podcast about playing games, and we're just one short of a good time.
Welcome to 3Play Podcast. Today, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Brean, also known as Eclecticlish.
I am Jordan, aka Buckeye734.
I am Sunday School Billy, a.k.a. Sunday School Billy.
Okay, so what we're about to shift into is not anything like Mr. Stone's English class over there, where they're, it's all up to interpretation. There are set in stone correct answers to this quiz we're about to take. Yes, set in stone. But they don't know your name's Sunday School Billy.
It's true.
Well, now they know your whole name. Sunday School Billy Stone.
Yeah.
We've done this before. We're going to play 5 seconds of boss music, and you've got to name the boss battle. And you can keep score at home however you'd like. I think last time we did a point for the game and a point for the specific boss.
Yep. And then another point for if you actually know the title of that song.
Sure,
that's right.
Bonus points.
Mm-hmm.
That's a super point.
That's a super point. So you play at home, you keep score yourself, and we're going to go ahead and start with our first boss theme. And here it comes. Boss theme number 1.
Oh,
I mean, that's
frick me.
That's 100%.
And I tried to go in like easy to hard order here, but we'll see. I'm not sure if Sunday School Billy was totally in tune with that one, which is not surprising given some of our previous conversations we've had with Sunday School Billy.
It's there. Like I have fought this boss before, I think.
Nope, you haven't.
Okay, then I know what it is. You've just given away.
Then you know what it is.
You just gave up the ghost.
All right.
Well, depending. No. Actually, he might have. He may
have. I doubt it. Oh,
he may have.
Yo, he may have.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on to boss theme 2. And again, these are kind of in increasing difficulty as we go. So boss theme number 2.
Okay. I know this one too.
Oh. I think this is wrong. I think that's wrong. But I don't have a better guess.
All right. So hopefully you're doing better than Sunday School Billy right now. And
yeah, I'm 0 points so far.
Brean seems pretty confident that he's got the first 2. So
yeah.
If you're playing at home, you're chasing Brean right now, probably.
We'll
okay.
see.
Here comes boss theme number 3.
I want you're choosing good music, and I want it all to keep going. Mm-hmm. So I can just listen to the song.
Look, copyright, man. Afterwards you can go listen to the songs. Right? But we don't want to get sued.
I think we don't need to talk about this now, but I'm pretty sure with copyright stuff like songs, as long as you're talking about the music, for a certain amount of time, you can listen to, I think it's up to 20 or 30 seconds of it.
Okay, but we could do it longer.
Well, no, I understand for the
game purposes.
For the game purposes, you may want to keep it at 5, right? To cut it off at a certain point where the beat's just dropping. But just so you know, I do think we can get more than 5 seconds if we ever need to.
All right. That being said, here comes boss theme number 4.
Like, I think that every one of these, except maybe number 2, I think every one of them is going to be like, damn it. I knew it. Like, that's in my brain.
If you need a second, again, take a second, listen to it again, do what you need to. Theme 5, I don't anticipate anybody's going to get Theme 5. I think Theme 5 I picked to be pretty hard. If anybody here gets Theme 5, I'll be really impressed.
Well, I'm super confident on the first 2. I maybe know the game for the second 2. Maybe just guessing at it. So third, 5th one, I'm curious.
All right, here we go. Ready? Boss theme number 5.
Man, these are all bangers.
5 is hard. But I will give you a hint on number 5.
Ooh, I love hints.
I will give you a hint because 5 is hard.
Sure.
This boss battle has been discussed already on this podcast. That's your hint. This boss battle has been discussed.
Well, we did
on this podcast
of favorite bosses, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
so
and this is extra pressure your guesses on me, at all, because I just edited that one.
Oh,
so I'm trying to think through.
When you edit, you don't really like hear any, right? You're not listening for the content; you're listening for the sound. So I'll cut you some slack.
All right.
Annie's about to walk through, so you may need
all right,
to,
we'll pause. Yeah. Hi, Annie.
There she is.
Hi, Annie. Whoa.
I'm leaving that in.
Oh, Brean's going to leave that in, he said. We were talking about editing it out, but that's gold. That's podcast gold.
It's podcast gold. I love this game. And mostly I love running this game.
Because you have all the knowledge.
Yeah, it's great. And again, in the future, I think we should definitely do an instance where we do like title music right at the beginning of the game. Because I've done that a couple of times, like on like Spotify, or not Spotify, but Sporkle quizzes. And it's like, that tickles your brain so bad where it's like, oh, I know what that is. What is it? Right? All right. You guys ready?
Yep.
All right, here we go. All right, boss theme number 1. Let's play it one more time for you for the listeners at home.
Okay.
All right, and what do we think on boss theme number 1? I think Brean has the right answer, so let's go with Sunday School Billy's guess first.
Oh, I was going to say let Brean lead strong.
I want to hear.
No.
I want to hear yours.
I assume it's like something Final Fantasy. It sounds like that. So I guessed like you're fighting Sephiroth at some point.
What do you have to say to that, Brean?
You are absolutely correct. I believe this particular version of it is from the original.
This is the original.
This is Sephiroth's theme, and the song is called One Winged Angel.
Correct.
Wow. So you get like 30 points right there.
Brean gets like 30 points.
Two regular points and 1 special point.
Yeah. This is the final battle against Sephiroth. Well, I guess technically not the final one, because there is like a little dream sequence fight after this. But this is like the final boss of the game.
You're spoiling
a super old game.
25-year-old game
that I have not finished yet.
Yes. Now, Billy, this was interesting because Brean brought up a good point that you may have fought Sephiroth maybe in a different game, potentially, as a boss. Because Sephiroth has Smash Bros. He's appeared in several games as a boss. So
I tried to fight him in Kingdom Hearts when I played that.
And that's another one.
And I was like, I'm done with this. This is stupid. Like, why I have nothing to prove.
But do you think that's the case now? Like, if you were to go back and play that game, like, because I feel like Dark Souls has changed me in that I would love those boss fights now.
I mean, we've already done our boss fight episode. What I know of that boss fight is that he just has like 30 health bars, and so like I have like that's
It's a
the grind, right? Like that's the JRPG grind that like I just don't care about. Where I feel like Dark Souls bosses are not necessarily that.
Fair. All right, here we go. Boss theme number 2. Here it is for the listeners one more time. All right. Again, Brean, pretty confident on this one. Mm-hmm. So I would like to hear Sunday School Billy's guess again first.
I said like Shovel Knight.
It does have like a Shovel Knight sound, right?
I know it's not Shovel Knight, but that was my guess.
Brean, hit me with it.
This is from Sonic 1 or 2. I'm not exactly sure, but it's you're fighting Dr. Robotnik / Eggman, whichever he's called in that game.
Yeah, this is the original Sonic, and this is and this theme gets used. I'm pretty sure every time you fight Dr. Robotnik in the original Sonic, pretty much every time he shows up. Yep, and that is the. I don't know if this actually has a title to this song.
Yeah,
some our listeners out there can correct me on that, but yeah, this is Robotnik.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I hear it now. that is Sonic 1, right?
Yes, that is the original
okay,
one.
Yeah. Because I was just playing Sonic 2.
So you were in that like 8-bit like retro
side-scrolling
area. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right, this is where things I think got hard. So let's move on to boss theme number 3, and we'll see what we got. All right, we've made Sunday School Billy go first a lot. Let's hear what you think, Brian.
Yeah, so this one this sounds Castlevania-esque to me, so I guessed Castlevania as the game, but I have no idea what boss or song it is.
Sunday School Billy, thoughts?
Oh, I said like it's Dark Souls something because I don't think you've played a lot of Castlevania games, Jordan. So because like that came to mind.
You are right that I haven't played a lot of Castlevania games.
But this is a Castlevania song.
This is not a Castlevania song, but it does come from a Metroidvania that I have played a crap ton of.
This is a Hollow Knight song?
This is the Hollow Knight. This is the fight against the Hollow Knight.
Oh, you're right. Man. I guess it's because you like never get to him that I don't hear it that much.
Yeah, wow. Ow! For those not in the know, I speedrun Hollow Knight and often don't make it to the final boss because I suck so much at the rest of the game.
Yeah, I hear it now. Right now, it's just like, oh,
and
yeah,
maybe it's because I cut out the violin part at the beginning, right, where it's just like.
Yeah, I think that might have tipped it off a little bit too much. I'm gonna pull the full thing up just to hear it.
And that theme is, I love that theme. That theme is the music, so good.
The game is just everything is just fire. It's all just.
And I was noticing that, like I speedrun the game, right? But I was just thinking about that the other day as I'm walking through. It's just like every area I walk through, like the music is just so good.
It's one guy primarily, like
really.
Writing it. Yes, I mean the Hollow Knight team is a team of 3.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, boss theme number 4.
Real quick aside, are they working on anything else right
now?
No,
I don't think so. I think they've disbanded. I think they're Team Cherry is Team Dead Cherry.
Team EA.
Cherry Pit.
Team Cherry Pit. All right, boss theme number 4 coming at you. So, Brian, do you have any guess?
This one I was thinking it was from like maybe a Metal Gear Solid of some sort, but that's as close as I can get.
Billy should know this one.
I should. Yeah.
Oh, it's hurting him. It's
I mean, that electric guitar is in my brain.
It is. We've talked about this electric guitar before. You and I.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote right because like I know this isn't it, but I can at least like capture the essence of the song because like what this feels like to me, not being able to recall my stupid brain memory. This feels like it's invoking that moment right before Goku like powers up to go kick the crap out of Vegeta. And so, like, I'm excited for you to remind me what song this is, because, like, that's the emotion that this.
I think. All right, so you have no guess then at this point.
Well,
All
I
right,
wrote fighting Vegeta in some shitty DBZ game.
That's not what it is.
Yeah,
maybe I can help you out. Can you give me that guitar riff one more time, Billy? And I'll insert something, and that'll probably help you.
Okay.
Darkness.
Yeah, it doesn't help.
Did that help? Okay.
No.
This is Hades from the game Hades.
Oh, yes.
And this is actually phase 2 of the fight. Because phase one doesn't have this hard of me. Like, it's one of those things where you like think you kill him, and then it's like this riff kicks in, and it's like,
and I know, and I know why that didn't come to mind, because like I am squeezing every orifice on my body so tightly when I'm like playing this that I think my ears actually plug up. And I don't hear the music because I'm so focused on the game and the fight itself.
And just that music's so good.
That game's perfect.
That's a
perfect game.
I think that's the best roguelite I've ever played in the roguelite genre. Yeah. Which is saying that, like, because I have not played Returnal. People are big on how good Returnal is too. Sure. So that's one that's on my list. All right, last one, boss theme number 5, and I will be shocked if either of you get this one. Here we go.
Before we do this, Returnal is a dumb name.
Yes, okay. I agree.
All right, great. Moving on.
Boss theme number 5. Here it comes. All right, and my hint to you guys on this was that we have discussed this boss fight on this podcast. Any guesses? And I would fully expect these just to be blind guesses here.
I mean, having just edited it, I know we talk about Sekiro battles, and we talk about... my guess is some Sekiro fight.
Boss fight.
I have no idea.
Billy, thoughts?
That's not... I mean... If that's a Sekiro fight, then I'm forgetting.
It's not a Sekiro
style
fight.
Of music. Yeah, that's not really. That's more grandiose, I think.
There's no pan flutes.
Wait, is it? Well, no, it's not fighting Whitney with her milk tank.
No,
in Pokemon Gold.
No, it is not fighting Whitney with her milk tank.
It's not. But that would have been a really
everything is else
like
do 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 do.
It's not Sith. I don't think it's from Shadow of Colossus. I don't think there's really music there. I don't think it's Bowser from Yoshi's Island. But
can I give you guys? I'll give you guys one more hint.
Sure.
The one that I would guess would be Jack Krauser from Resident Evil 4, but I think that's actually silent and there's not music, so I don't know.
Correct, and it's not that. Okay. I will give you one more hint. There is an unskippable cutscene right before
I almost said that.
Well, there you go. Okay.
This is the battle against...
you have Iree's heart.
Yep, this is the battle against Riku from the original Kingdom Hearts with that unbearable, unskippable cutscene right before it.
So you know that like those notes, ba, 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 like you hear that trying to fall asleep at night.
I had no idea. Like when I was listening to this, I had to like double check and make sure that this was the correct theme. Because I don't think this theme is particularly memorable, and that's why I put it at number 5 because it's. But it's like I wanted to kind of have increasing difficulty here, and I thought we kind of hit that mark there.
Yeah,
so
that's a fun callback, man. I totally beefed it on all those.
Yeah. So to recap. Boss theme 1 was One Winged Angel, Sephiroth. Boss theme 2 was Dr. Robotnik from the original Sonic. Boss theme 3... What was boss theme 3? I can't remember. Boss theme 3 was Hollow Knight from Hollow Knight. Boss theme 4... Hades from Hades. I went with a theme on those two title characters. And then boss theme 5 was Riku from Riku. No, I mean from Kingdom Hearts.
Riku from Riku.
Fun times. I'm glad you guys played that with me.
Yeah.
Hope you at home enjoyed it.
I think I made it out of that with 1, 2, 3,
You nailed the
4,
first two.
4 regular points and 1 special point.
I had 2 points because I guessed Sephiroth from Final Fantasy. So
There you go.
Yeah.
So if you did better than Sunday School Billy or Brean here, feel free to tweet at us at 3playcast on Twitter.
And demand your prize.
Maybe one of our Twitter friends can keep track of our points so that we don't have to, and we'll keep a running total. And then when the podcast ends, whoever has the most points wins something.
Well, seeing as how the
pride.
podcast is never going to end, then
Well, when Jordan dies.
This is the cast that never ends.
Well, no, we'll reinvent it. We'll continue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sure.
Kind of like every remake
To play.
of games.
To play. Where we're too short of a good time.
One short of a podcast.
So what are we talking about today, Brian?
Well, it's funny that Billy talked about reinventing ourselves, because we're talking about remakes today. And how games get reinvented of sorts. So to start this off, what's your general feeling on remakes? When some company announces hey, we're remaking this game, do you generally go ooh, or do you generally go meh? Or what does that reaction depend on for you?
For me, usually it's a negative. I think a lot of times remaking kind of goes along with the thing we see in movies, right? Where we're they're just rehashing the same story and same people over and over again instead of coming up with something new, right? So generally I think it's a negative. Occasionally there's something where I think there are games that are particularly old, right? And that story hasn't been told in quite a while. That I think a remake is okay, but most of the time I'm anti-remake. I think maybe that's too strong, but no, it's not strong enough. I'm anti-remake.
What about you, Billy?
I'm just trying to dissect some things that our friend Mr. Jordan Buckeye here is saying. You emphasize narrative, you're oh, that story hasn't been told in a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm more excited about this remake because I haven't engaged with that story in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're on the same side because I am anti-remake. And I think about this with movies a lot. And I know that movies and games are different. We can talk about the details if we need to. But a couple of years ago, there was a rumor of Ryan Reynolds being interested in remaking the movie Clue, which is
I just read about that the other day.
Yes, and I like Ryan Reynolds a lot, and I would boycott him if he did that. Why? You shouldn't try to remake something that's already great or perfect.
In the case of Clue,
yeah. So in the case of Clue, so I understand companies or people or organizations saying oh, we're going to access this group of people and we're going to remake this thing that they love because then we have a fan base already built in.
Right.
So I get the desire to do that. I think it's dumb as hell. Because at least from my perspective as a consumer, I think it's smart for them from a marketing perspective or whatever, but I hate it. Because if something's already great, we'll just leave it alone. You don't need to you're either adding very little to this new thing, or you're failing, and you just created something less.
Well, and I think what you're saying too is movies are different than games for sure, right? Are. Because anytime you remake a game, there is the gameplay element and the touches of quality of life improvements, right, that they can make a lot of the time are definitely beneficial when they go through and do these remakes and things like that. I don't know. I guess it's hard for me to put my brain around that though, because who's the remake for? right? Are you trying to reach a new audience with this same game, or are you trying to capitalize on like nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
And in that case, like the people who are going to buy this game have probably already have the old one sitting on their shelf behind them, you know?
Yeah. Yep. But we'll be generally more than excited to pay $60 for a touched up, remaster. Because we need to talk about like the difference maybe between remasters and remakes. The biggest like flop recently would be like the Grand Theft Auto remasters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know a ton about them other than that, like you see these screenshots of like what Rockstar released compared to like community mods, and it's like beyond. They look like bad memes, except that like no, this is actually comparing what a company put out, this like cartoon looking garbage, to like a really and I get that that's different. Maybe that's not like apples to oranges or something like that. So you get companies like cashing in. I think Nintendo's guilty of this with the recent Skyward Sword, which I tried. Mm-hmm. I tried Skyward Sword when it first came out, and I couldn't really get into it because of motion controls. And I came back to it to try to get into it because you can play without motion controls. And it is ultimately a Zelda game that is not for me. But also it's just like, well, you're just making very minor... Maybe just stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it. Just put your power, like your workforce towards something else. Why don't you release Breath of the Wild 2? So yeah, movies and games are different. And I think there are examples of like good remakes or good remasters. In places where it makes sense, but I just think generally it's like no, stop it.
How do you respond to that question, Brean?
So going back to the kind of the original question, my gut reaction when anyone goes to remake a game is always skepticism. So because I feel a lot like Billy does, where it's like, well, I loved that game, so why would I want you to remake it? There are some exceptions to that, because I agree.
There are definitely exceptions.
Yeah. I agree that the two usually most useful things that you get in a remake is the quality of life improvements, which is really nice. And also, usually the game gets moved to a more accessible platform in remakes. So those two things,
I don't have to dust out the Wii.
Right.
Dust off the Wii to play Skyward Sword.
Right. Now it's on the Switch. So if it's a game that I really, really loved and I want to have access to it without having to set up whole other system to do it, great. And maybe that's enough for you to get it, and maybe it's not.
I will accept the accessibility. I think that's potentially the most legitimate argument.
Sure.
Even quality of life stuff, I would just be like, no, like I don't. That's
well, and at this point,
we don't need it. We don't need it.
And
I want my Resident Evil tank controls.
At this point, though, like I feel like you guys are bringing up this idea of like accessing these old games, right? And at this point, I feel like, isn't it? How haven't companies just figured out how to put their entire libraries, up, for download, right? And it like you're even seeing this with like Nintendo Online and like the Paper Mario bugs that can cause your entire save to get deleted, right? Like how is it that we live in this time where, what we used to have to fit on a cartridge, right, we can now download immediately, but we still can't figure out how to get these things to run properly, right? So the point of all that is like, I feel like we get intentionally restricted on a lot of these things so that they can cash in on, we're gonna remake these things, and you can buy the new remake for $85.99, right? And
$85.99.
Well, it's
what's priced at $85?
We're gonna be there. We're gonna be there soon.
Well, it's like when Nintendo released the Mario 3D games, that whole bundle, and it was only available for a certain amount of time. So it's like that. It's forced scarcity or something like that.
Sure, forced scarcity.
Yeah,
and Nintendo does that all the time.
Yeah. It's pretty common practice for a lot of businesses. But
I wanna talk about some specific. The PlayStation what?
PlayStation 5s.
Yeah, force
I mean, I don't know if they're forcing scarcity. I think they would much rather be selling a ton of PlayStation 5s.
I mean, it's free marketing if, right?
It's
Every other news article is like, people still can't get their PlayStation 5s, and every other Reddit post is, I finally got my PlayStation 5.
Sure.
Well, stretch that out for 2 years, and
Nice.
there you go. There's your white boomerang. I want to talk specifically about a couple of remakes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll just open, I think, with Final Fantasy VII, because that's so dear to your heart, Jordan. The original Final Fantasy VII, where is that?
Great.
Yes. So, is this remake? If it's not Final Fantasy, where is this game? If this game that you played is not the Final Fantasy VII remake, if it's just new RPG from whatever, where is that game landing? As opposed to where it lands? Because
I mean, it depends. How does it look, right? Anytime you have a new IP, right, or something that is not built off of something else, I think you have to judge it a lot by its gameplay, right, and by its story that it stands on itself. And I the typical example I think of that is the original Last of Us. When they showed that at E3 the first time, I remember sitting and going, no way is this how the game actually plays. There's no way this is real.
I remember that too.
And that got me so excited just to try and play that game. And so I think it's hard to separate. I don't think I would be nearly as hyped for the game upon release if it wasn't Final Fantasy VII Remake.
New
right?
IP JRPG.
Right.
But
yeah,
Billy,
there's no way.
I think your point though was more that let's say the game was exactly the same as it is today, but the original Final Fantasy never existed.
Never existed.
So what would you love this version of Final Fantasy?
I mean,
as much as you did the original.
I think
I think the answer to that is no, because I'm not 8 years old anymore, right? And I'm not playing this game, this JRPG for the first time and understanding how a turn-based combat system works, right? And falling in love with all those intricacies that go along with that. And so, I think nostalgia is a powerful thing, right? That being said, I think Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake of a 25-year-old game, right?
Sure.
So this is one of the few instances where I'm yes, let's remake this and upgrade 25 years of graphical upgrades and improvements, right? And I think I definitely have if we could spend a long time, I could spend a long time talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. There's I have some problems with the remake, but overall I left that game extremely happy because they took one of my childhood favorites, right, and remade it. So to me it's it's okay if you take a game that is really old and bring it to a new generation. If you are taking a game that is not that old, right, and you're saying, "Hey, we've remade it," all right, now we're stretching things, right? So if Nintendo came out tomorrow and said, "We're remaking the original Legend of Zelda," right, I would be excited about that because the Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda, is not a game that I really got to play as a kid, right? And so, I mean, I think a perfect example of this is Link's Awakening, right? Yeah. The Link's Awakening on Switch was awesome, right?
It was very fun.
It's still, the great thing about that remake was it still felt like a Game Boy game, right?
Yes.
In many ways, but there are all those quality of life improvements. So I think that's the one time. I think that's the one time I'm okay with a remake is when you take a game that's old and bring it to a new generation, right? But that's really my line.
So I want to differentiate a little bit because I would say Link's Awakening is really a remaster versus a remake. Did they change the game at all?
No,
I think it's a remake. I mean, if you build a game from the ground up again and keep a lot of the things the same, I would call that a remake, right? If you are building a new game with no, none of your, what's the
I
word
understand.
I'm looking for?
I think I understand the disconnect, and you're both kind of saying similar. So Jordan, you're saying they built a new engine in order to recreate this, whatever, however old that game, like 20-year-old game is. So like they said, hey, here's your computer, build this game from the ground up, everything new.
And you have the original to work off of, absolutely, but you're still creating all the new art.
Nothing's new in that game. That, like, I'm pretty sure the gameplay is like a 1-for-1, right? Maybe like little tiny things.
I mean, there are definitely quality of life improvements, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's like
your characters aren't restricted to like 1-by-1 blocks, like, you know what I mean? Like on the Game Boy screen.
Yes.
Right.
But that game is like,
but like, note for note, like as you're playing the game, it's the same game as the original.
Yes. But it's not a remaster, right? It's not like they took all the assets that were already existing and just made them shinier and then threw it back in. That's what I would call a remaster, is they take all the same assets, right? They clean them up a little bit. They don't touch anything, and then they just put it out on the new system.
They put in new textures. They upgrade stuff to 4K.
Exactly.
And like, so you can make a game look beautiful through a remaster. I think maybe we've struck on a game that's like, this is like, I think I would fall in the camp of calling it a remake, but I do think it lands in this weird, like, valley of, like, right, it doesn't really do any, because, like, you know, Jordan, you said you have some problems with, like, what Final Fantasy VII does, because they do some story stuff different, and they, like, change some things, and there's, like, new gameplay mechanics, whereas, like, ultimately in Link's Awakening, everything, even, like, gameplay mechanics, yes, you're not restricted to, like, pixel.
Right.
But it's like, oh, this is how you solve this puzzle. This character's over here. This person's here. And that is all.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that.
No.
I think anybody trying to find an original Game Boy with an original Link's Awakening cartridge is going to have a hard time, right? Or going to have to fork over a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so I think this is an instance where I'm very happy they spent time remaking that. I think Blue Point for PlayStation, right? Blue Point has remade several games, right? They've remade Shadow of the Colossus. They remade Shadow of the Colossus, right? Yeah. They remade Demon Souls, right? And they didn't use the old stuff, right? They built these games. They have the blueprint, right? But they've still got to make it and polish it, right? So I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that. For me, it's more about which game did you remake? Is it a game that deserved the touch-ups that you're planning on giving it? Or are your touch-ups not really touch-ups, right? The remasters I have a problem with.
Right. And like there's a laundry list of those, right? Like we see Elder Scrolls remasters every, 9 months or so. We see like Resident Evil 4 being re-released,
VR
remasters which I do think the VR, it would be a situation where it's like, oh, I'd be okay with that as a remaster because you're experiencing that game from like a super different angle, right? And like VR is fun for different reasons than like traditional controls.
Yeah, it's a different platform essentially.
Sure.
I didn't know that this is a fun one. This is just like a fun aside. I didn't know that they had remade Turtles in Time.
What?
Which you guys have probably played Turtles in Time.
Yeah.
Right? Yes. Like the most beloved of like the Ninja Turtle games, if not like one of my most beloved Super Nintendo games.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like reading through some like remakes and remasters that were like great or were terrible. And one of them was Turtles in Time Reshelled.
Yeah, I think I did hear about this at some point.
Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3.
There you go.
There you go.
And just was like controls, everything was just abysmal.
It looks terrible.
And like that's a
cash grab.
And like that's a game where it's like, man, if they did that well, then like sure, bring it on because I always want to play Turtles in Time.
Sure.
Right. So I don't know. Is this a little bit of like a self-fulfilling prophecy with like remakes and stuff? That's like, well, I don't want you to remake anything, but if you do remake it and it's good, then like fine, I'll give you a pass. Like that like my opinion, I feel like my opinion ultimately like
and so the one that comes to my mind when you say that, right, and There's a lot of rumors. This isn't confirmed, but there's a lot of rumors going around that they're going to remake the original Last of Us, right? To kind of coincide with the release of the HBO show that is also coming out. And I very much have a problem with that. Like, the original Last of Us is like 11 years old at this point, right?
It's like coming up on 10. It's coming up on 10 years.
So you're taking a PS3 game, right, and moving it up to PS5, right? That's 2 generations. So there is time, and there is definitely, like, you go back and play the original Last of Us, there are some like gameplay mechanics that can be improved. There are some like little tweaks that I could definitely see them making. Or to remake that game, to me, is like offensive, quite honestly. And I don't know how else to put it besides that. It's offensive that you are trying to remake a masterpiece that is 10 years old, and we all know that whatever remake you make, it can't hold up, right?
Well, but what if it's a remake? If it is a remake in the vein of the Link's Awakening, and that it's like, oh, we are rebuilding this game,
but why? Because
graphics, controls,
and
quality of life stuff, all the arguments we've been making.
And that being said, right, if you played The Last of Us Part 2, there's a big graphical leap from Last of Us Part 1 to Last of Us Part 2. So there is that aspect of, holy crap, they could make some I don't know how else to say this. Those cutscenes could look a lot nicer.
Sure.
But if that's the only reason you're doing it, right? I don't like PS3 isn't obscure, right? You could still get your hands and play the original Last of Us. There's a remaster of The Last of Us on PS4, right? There is zero reason at this point, and maybe that comes back to the accessibility point that Brean was making. There's zero reason you need to remake The Last of Us at this point. It is not a game that story is lost. It's not a game that people can't get their hands on to actually try and play for the first time, right? So to remake that right now sounds like nothing but a cash grab to me, and is offensive.
And PS5 plays PS4 games, right?
Correct. I could throw in my Last of Us Remastered, which I bought. Oh, shame. And I could throw that in there right now and boot it up and play it. Right?
Yeah. So unless they're like really changing something about it. Well, that brings up this question too, is like, do you like it when they make changes, like big changes to the game? How much change is too much? Is it certain types of changes? Like with Final Fantasy VII, like a lot changed.
They changed a lot.
I don't feel like that was a bad choice. I think if they tried to do what they did with Link's Awakening, it wouldn't have hit the same way. If they tried to do it beat for beat exactly the same, I don't know if Final Fantasy VII lends itself to that.
Well, and so I think you bring up an interesting point, Brean, in that I think if they did that, there'd be a lot of happy people.
Sure.
There would be a lot of people happy that that's what the approach they did. I think Square Enix would have made a lot less money.
Sure.
If they had done that. Because the only people who would have bought it would be like the people who are already in love with the original game, right? Remake has a lot of more action RPG type elements, right? And I think in today's day and age, that's just a easier game to jump into for people than, people like Sunday School Billy over here, right? Yeah, I think I don't know, Billy, you can speak to that, right? I feel like you would be much more comfortable playing the remake than you would be the original.
Yeah, right.
Or does your hate for Final Fantasy just transcend?
I don't like hate Final Fantasy. I just think it's amazing that I think my favorite video game fact is just that every time they re-release the original Final Fantasy VII, they include a button to speed up the game. Like, I just think that's so lovely. So I'll be excited when they release the remastered version of Final Fantasy VII Remake, or did they already do that with like retrograde or whatever?
Yeah, integrate.
Integrate. Yeah. Is there a speed up feature?
No,
on that?
there's not.
Then I'm not playing it yet. So I'll wait for the remaster of Final Fantasy VII Integrate in order to hit that speed up button. I mean, I like looked through and be like, man, what are remakes that like, yeah, I'm pumped about that. Like, or games that like I played, I was like, yeah, I'm excited about the remake. And it's the original Resident Evil. They remade that.
They remade that for GameCube, right?
Yes, and it's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to go back, I guess, and load it up. I think, like graphically, I mean, right, that was a huge jump, and still is like, yeah, this I can understand what's going on.
I mean, that's one generation, isn't it? PS1
From PlayStation
to GameCube,
to GameCube, PlayStation to PlayStation 2, and PlayStation N64, and after N64 is GameCube. So yeah.
Yeah, that's thinking about that now. Like that's actually like that's short to me. That's like less than this Last of Us remake, right? So
yes, but and like we can talk about this too. Like that from that generation to that one, from N64 to GameCube, that was huge returns, right? From PS1 to PS2, huge returns on like graphical power.
Yeah.
And then like PS2 to PS3 was like, yeah, that's good. Like there's definitely big jumps there. And then PS3 to PS4, it's like, oh yeah, they're doing some really cool stuff with this. But I feel like every generation we jump, we're getting like those increases
incremental
are getting smaller and smaller, right? Because we're getting so close to Uncanny Valley and like photorealism with stuff. Mm-hmm. So like eventually I did want to kind of ask this question, like, are we going to get to a point where it's like, well, you know, you talked about like Final Fantasy VII being remade over 25 years. Like, yeah, huge improvements.
Yeah.
But like 25 years from now, and who knows what gaming is going to be in 25
Who knows what that's going to look like.
When we are in retirement homes doing nothing but gaming.
With our headsets on.
That's right. No, it'll be like a drug, right?
Dude, we're not going to be in retirement homes. We're going to be in in the Matrix pods.
Yes.
Like with our headsets on, right?
So
and pretending we're still living in 2022.
So I am curious if like remakes
I might pick a different year.
I'm curious if remakes and remasters will continue to have sort of like a home, because I was just like, what are you like? You're creating like more hair on your person's face. Like, what are you doing?
Tell you right now, there are games that if they remade them, and I'm talking remake, right, ground up, they remake the entire game. I can think of several games. If they made them right now, I would go out and spend $60 to buy that game, right?
No, let me clarify. I mean like games coming out now, right? Like we are about to play Elden Ring in a month. Or by the time this is published, maybe we're already playing it.
Yeah, probably.
But like, will there be any sort of market for an Elden Ring remake in 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? Or it's like, no, graphical stuff is sort of like, not plateaued, but
well, and I think you bring up an interesting point in that what games get remade, right? The games that get remade are the ones that are all time greats in people's like hearts, right?
Yes.
You don't just get remakes of Knack.
I'm not going to see a remake of Fester's Quest for the NES.
Oh.
No, you will not see a remake of that. Because it's terrible. You will not see a remake of Knack because it's perfect, right? Like, again, I think even evil corporations recognize perfection. Know that it would destroy them from the inside out if they were to try to remake it.
Great.
So Resident Evil 2, I played that remake a couple years ago. That was really good. I really enjoyed that. And that was very much a remake.
Yeah. And they did some
original.
Things with that, right? They definitely changed up a lot of things, right? And I lean towards the side that I like it when they take some creative liberties, and make it their own, right? Whoever's making it, they do some different things, because that's also just sort of a subversion of expectations. You know what I mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Going in and expecting things to be exactly the same, and then having some like weird surprises show up, right? I think that makes it for a more enjoyable experience for those of us who've been waiting on these remakes, right? And been waiting for Final Fantasy VII Remake, like, oh yes, cool. But it's not just the same game again, right?
Yeah.
So
that's right.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Pokemon because
I did. I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So go.
Yeah. So well, if we go back even before I talk about Arceus, because I will rave about Arceus, but like they remake old Pokemon games all the time. They did
all the time.
Fire Red.
Really?
Yeah.
Fire Red,
Leaf Green.
I mean, Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, on the Game Boy Advance.
Remake?
Well, so
Pokemon.
there's a big.
That's interesting. So you're telling me that's a well that they go to?
Oh yeah,
Nintendo.
Occasionally.
Oh yeah.
It's not. It's Game Freak.
It's Nintendo.
I think Nintendo only has like a 20-some% stake in Game Freak. So like it's
they work
enough,
very
so I get what you're
closely
saying.
together, but I don't know exactly what the
I
relationship is.
I haven't seen my Pokemon game on my PlayStation 5.
No,
yet, so.
and I've read about this, how like Nintendo owns enough of Game Freak that Pokemon's not going to any other systems, but like Nintendo doesn't own Game Freak.
Right.
Clarifying point.
They own them. They own
I'm
them.
defending Pokemon.
They own them by owning.
Okay, neither of us play Pokemon. Let's listen to the guy who plays Pokemon.
Okay.
So they remake these games all the time. What I like about it, so the very first remake with Fire Red, Leaf Green, these came out because there was a big change from Gen 1 and Gen 2 to Gen 3. There were problems with Gen 1 and Gen 2, and they're like, these are game breaking. We really need to fix these. And basically the idea was that the special stat was used for both
just
attack
overpowered.
and defense, which meant that psychic Pokemon
That
were
doesn't
insanely
mean-
powerful.
But that doesn't mean they had to remake those games.
Yes, I agree.
Because there's a clean break. You can't get them. You cannot get your Pokemon from Red and Blue, Gold and Silver to Sapphire,
Ruby and Sapphire.
Ruby. You can't, because they changed the game enough at its core that you literally can't move them.
But they don't solve that problem by putting out a remake, right? Unless you play through Ruby and Sapphire, like Red or not Ruby and Sapphire, but Leaf Green and Fire Red, right? Unless you play through them and get the Pokemon again, right?
Yes. Well,
yes, Jordan, your Pokemon are trapped on those original Game Boy games forever.
Forever.
Yes.
Right?
They can't leave that ecosystem. So Brean's saying they did the remakes in order to give you the opportunity to go into those worlds,
right?
Get those Pokemon, and then transfer them into new games to continue moving them along.
So those ones make sense to me because it's a new system. It's not It's Game Boy Advanced. It's a new base to the game that they've created. So those ones make sense to me.
Quick question.
Yeah.
In the original games, at least in Red and Blue, psychic Pokemon were supposed to be weak to Ghost, but that was glitched, wasn't it? So that like Ghost moves just didn't actually hurt them. I think they don't even work against Psychic. Listen, listeners, bust out your old Game Boys with Pokemon Red and Blue.
The original Red and Blue.
Not
the remakes. Not the remakes.
Not the remakes, because that won't work. I want you to go and get some Ghost Pokemon and fight some Psychic Pokemon. And tell us if the Ghost moves work against the Psychic Pokemon. Let us know what happens. Tweet at us. I assume we'll hear from you in about 4 months. So, why are you so excited about Arceus?
So, with Arceus, I mean, the formula for Pokemon has been the same since the beginning. Yep. It's you walk around, you catch a bunch of Pokemon. There are multiple versions. You trade them back and forth between the versions to get them all. Got to catch them all. You fight a bunch of gyms to get your badges, to go to the Elite Four, to fight the Elite Four.
That formula's been around since 97.
Yep, been exactly the same. They've changed it up a very little bit. They've changed gyms to like challenges in one of them. They're still technically gyms. They've changed up some mechanics. They've tried out some gimmicks. And but the main formula has always been the same. With Arceus, they took some huge risks and made some big changes.
Yeah, but would you love those changes if the game wasn't called Pokemon?
Ooh.
Yes.
What if it was called Yokai Watch?
What if it was called Digimon Arceus?
Well, then I'd be very confused. But I would still love it.
I would play that game. Man, I'd play that game.
I mean, in general, I really love collection games. So I think if this did not have the Pokemon label on it, I would absolutely love this game. It kind of, to me, feels like when they sat down to make this game, they're kind of like, all right, let's take our formula and set it aside. And we're going to go to our core of like, we know we want to make a game with a bunch of Pokemon that you go around and catch. But if we were to ignore our old formula, how would we make this formula today? And they took some big risks, I think, and I feel like it paid off. Not that the game's perfect. There's definitely like a few annoying things in it, a few things that I miss, but the way the game plays is so engaging and so fun and so fast paced, and there's not the older games definitely suffered from being grindy. This you can do some like grinding.
Is there a fast forward button?
No, on the old ones, no. I mean that's part
is there in this one?
No. Well, I mean, they don't need one because they
eliminated random battles. That's what Billy really hates.
Yeah, there's no random battle.
There's no random battles.
You run around.
There's no random battles, Billy. You can play it.
Great. I don't hate random battles. I mean, like, we all had that time where we're like, I gotta get to this town. I gotta get there. No, I don't want to fight you right now.
I'm at 5 HP.
I don't want to fight you. I'm gonna try and run away. It didn't work.
I'm asleep.
Can I still train up a Bidoof to level 100 and take it to fight legendary Pokemon and crush them?
Actually, yes. I've watched a little bit of streamers on this game, and I think one of the things that I find that is the most interesting is very early on, like when you have like a level 12, whatever starter Pokemon, you can run into a level 52 Snorlax who hyper beams you to death.
I sent you that video.
Yeah,
right? That's
so
great.
So I think that's
Oshawott just getting obliterated.
Yep.
So I think that's like really cool, knowing that like, oh, there is that challenge sitting right over there.
Yep.
That I'm allowed to go over to, right?
But you probably don't because you're going to get stomped.
At any point, do you get to sort of like control your Pokemon in like combat or anything? Like,
yeah. So combat, they did change combat, but it's still turn-based.
Sure.
However, your speed affects your turn order. So it's this interesting difference. So they also added this way that you can, if you master a particular move, so if I'm just using tackle, right? And I master the move tackle, I can either change it to agile or strong. And if I do strong, it makes my timer longer before I can go again. And if I do an agile, it makes my timer shorter, but it's not as powerful. And the strong makes it more powerful. And you can see over on like the side, like I'm going to go, then they're going to go, then I'm going to go. But if I use my agile, then I'm going to go twice, and then they're going to go.
This is some Final Fantasy X.
Yeah, it's a form, right? Like that's a pretty not uncommon thing, right? Like change the form of your attack. Like, cool.
Yeah, but then I might get multiple moves before they get to move, which that was never the case in Pokemon. Yeah. It was always I go, you go, I go, you go. Yeah. And the only difference is if I have a higher speed, then I go first. And if you have higher speed, you go first. And
unless
maybe you can change
attack.
it up. Yeah, you can maybe change that up with priority attacks, like quick attack and so forth. But by and large,
speed is always important in Pokemon, but that seems like it would buff speed as a stat to like be able to
chain 5 attacks together.
Yeah, to be able to hit a couple times in a row.
Potentially, but I mean the agile also drops your attack. I'm sure we're going to find something game breaking in there somewhere. But
somebody's broken in there.
It's been pretty even. Like I've tried to figure out ways to break it, like buffing my speed all the way and stuff, and I haven't found it yet.
So far stable.
Yeah,
that's great.
So that is to say, like this isn't a remake or a remaster in the traditional sense, but it is a remake of the formula that has been around in Pokemon forever, and I am loving it.
It's a reinvention.
Yeah,
right?
It's a reinvention. Which is also a good segue, because I'm very excited, because in April, Sir, You're Being Hunted is getting a remake.
Which is the game Brean speedruns, if no one is a long-time listener.
Well, and really they're calling that one the Reinvented Edition, because it's more than just a remake, it's more than just a remaster, but it's not quite a remake.
Right.
Same basic game, but they're adding on a ton of bells and whistles.
Content.
Yep. And and then they're also porting it to a couple of systems. So
you're excited. You're excited about that.
I'm very excited about that. They're addressing my biggest frustrations with the original game, and so I know
quality of life.
Yeah,
improvements.
Quality of life improvements.
And your character will no longer be hunted in the game.
Oh, it'll still be hunted.
That was your.
But
I thought that was your.
He wanted it to be called, "Sir, you are hunting."
Yeah. Sir, you are out for a walk.
Yeah, with a gun, and you can shoot some robots.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the biggest frustration with the old game is the movement system was pretty. You just
wonky.
Yeah,
clunky.
You just walk or run, and running is not that much faster than walking, and it takes a while to get anywhere.
Yeah,
and you have to jump a billion times to get over anything. But I know for a fact they're changing the movement system to be much more fast-paced, interesting movement.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for it.
Is there a game right now that if tomorrow they said, we're remaking this, you would like set aside some money going, yep, I'm buying that?
I mean, this just brings us back to the start of the discussion where it's like, I don't know what game that is, because if it's a game that I'd be excited to set aside money, I'd also be terrified that they would botch it.
Sure.
Are you afraid of that?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm ever afraid of that when somebody remakes a game. I question why they remake a game, but I don't necessarily think I'm worried that they're going to like mess it up.
I mean, do you have an answer?
There are a couple I can think of. I mean, for you, Billy, I would think like, would you not be excited if they said tomorrow, "Hey, we're remaking Ocarina of Time"? I mean,
I'm playing Ocarina of Time right now. Like, why do I need? Why do I need a remake? I'm playing it right now with my daughter. So no. Like, why are you doing this? Just release Breath of the Wild 2, which would basically
which has a new story
which will just
and
be
a new narrative.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm sure there is, but also there's that part of me is just like, well, like no, don't remake Ocarina of Time. I'm playing it right now. Stop it.
But
do something else.
What do you think, Brean? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yes. And this is kind of a dumb one to come to mind, but it's one that I feel like deserves a remake. So there's a game for PC.
Incoming obscure game that no one's ever heard of.
Exactly. There's a game for PC called Metal Marines. And this is from...
All right, I will take games that are never getting remade for 1,000 ounce.
Yeah. So I think this was like Windows 95 era.
Oh my gosh.
That definitely fits the era criteria.
Yeah, maybe XP. Like just barely. I think it worked on XP, but I think it came out earlier. But the coolest thing about it, and this sounds stupid at this point, but it was groundbreaking. The game would open in 3 windows on your computer. So you could see your background and all your icons around it.
I'm in.
And one window in the top right was the enemy's land, and you could like scroll around and look at their individual. It was all like kind of tile based, so you could see all their tiles and look around their island. And then your island was in the bottom left, and then you had like some controls that you had in a different window. But when you fired a missile from your island to their island, it actually would pop out of your window, fly across your your Windows screen, and land in their window over here. Separate windows. It'd like fly over your background with all your icons and everything. The missile would. It was So cool.
Imagine the graphical upgrade we could get for that today. You could have 2 monitors, and the missile would literally fly from one monitor to the other monitor.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds so dumb, but like there was something so fun about the fact that it was like it looked like 2 separate entities, but then this missile would like fly between them and join them. It was great.
I think for me, again, my original life, like my young childhood, is rooted in the original PlayStation. So I like if they came out tomorrow and said, "Hey, we're remaking Metal Gear Solid, the original," like, and that receives like a massive graphical overhaul, right? And you still get like all the sneaking and fun boss fights. Like that is a game I would set aside money and be like, "Yep, I'm buying that." Like, so for me, it's like these classic games that, like, when you go back to play them now, it's like these are old, man. These are old games, right? But getting to, because it's always that weird thing when you go back and look at the game and you're like, man, I don't remember it looking this old, right? I don't remember it looking like this, right? And those graphical overhauls are like, this is like how I pictured them, right? This is how I remember that character looking. And like playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake again, like yes, these are the characters, and that's the best part about that game is like, oh, they nailed every single character in here, like for what I remember it being.
If I've got an answer for you.
Okay.
If Respawn or Bluepoint announced that they were doing a remake of Star Wars Jedi Outcast,
okay,
I'd be on board for that.
Yeah.
I'd
and so I
jazzed.
think you bring up that has to be one of these companies that you trust to remake a game, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Yes. And part of it too would be that, like, I think for those of you that have played Jedi Outcast, it's got the best, like, still, I think, lightsaber combat of any Star Wars game. And like this came out on like GameCube. And in terms of like force powers and like, this idea of like a light system and a dark system for like, where you can sort of power up and things like that. So a little bit of RPG in there. But I think like giving that kind of, right, because what was the Star Wars game? Star Wars Jedi Fallen, what was it?
Which one are you talking about?
The one that we just played a couple years ago. That was basically like Sekiro, but Star Wars.
Oh, yeah. Fallen Order, I think.
Fallen Order, yeah. So you give like the Fallen Order gameplay kind of graphical treatment to this like game that I still love. That would be very much a remake because there wasn't like a parry system. It was a lot more just like swooshing and running around and shooting lightning. So it would be changing the game big time. But I think that would make it a remake, and I think that would... And then the narrative, really, and the voice acting. Oh, the voice acting.
They are... I mean, they are
bad.
Remaking Knights of the Old Republic, right? That's a big Star Wars game that's getting remade.
And
that's different. That's an RPG. Like, that's RPG pretty much through and through, right?
Yeah.
So not necessarily in the same vein.
I think the only Star Wars game I sunk a lot of time into was some of the flying space combat games. Some of the original ones.
Squadron.
Well, Rogue Squadron, the new one. But the really, really old ones, I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it was just called Star Wars TIE Fighter or...
TIE Fighter.
Yes, those are old.
Yeah,
we're going way back.
Yep.
That's excellent.
So have we learned anything tonight?
No.
Do we have any of our opinions changed on remakes?
Oh, my opinion never changes.
No, I think we have like some slightly better definitions, or at least understand where each other's coming from a bit more on what they refer to as a remake. But yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know that they're necessarily good or bad.
I still stand by that they're good when you take something ancient, not ancient, but and it's got to be a good game, right? If you're
I think
taking one of the best games ever, why are you remaking it?
Personally, I can't wait for the remake of Pong.
Sure.
Imagine the graphical overhaul on that one.
Imagine that one.
I still think you you can right. Like I get why you don't remake a bad game, but I think that's what should be remade, right? Like, oh, we had a good idea or a good concept here, and it fell flat, but we can like breathe new life into this. It's like, yeah, remake the good games because they're good and you have a following. But man, look for like those bad games that could have been good. Remake those.
Remake those games. Honestly, yeah, remake Fester's Quest and make it a good game.
Yes.
No.
Remake.
If they announced they were remaking Fester's Quest, are you guys gonna buy Fester's Quest?
I would be so excited. Honestly,
I mean, Brean would be very excited. I'd be super intrigued. Or like, right, we all sunk time into like crappy games that were like, yeah, this is a part of my childhood, but I would never play this today because it's bad.
Ooh, I changed my answer. Crystalis from NES.
Oh yes, we all know. Wait, I actually do think
this game is a famous game. It was a groundbreaking game. It plays like a Super Nintendo game, but it was a Nintendo game. Like it was,
but it was an NES game.
Yeah.
Not SNES, NES.
Yeah, it was.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
It was really, really good.
Yeah, I think I played some of this. Definitely not like a ton.
The music in it was amazing. I actually had Jaylee and I, when we got married, the music that we walked after they had announced us man and wife and walked down the aisle we walked out to one of the songs from this game. Very, very good.
That's fantastic. Mm-hmm. Remake it, and you guys are in the credits. You know, they'll say, like, thank you for inspiring us to remake Crystalis.
Yeah. Special thanks to 3Play Podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Crystalis for the PS6. Coming
that's
27.
That's not long enough.
You
need more time. Let it marinate.
That's definitely the end of our episode.
Thanks for joining us on 3Play. Hey, thanks for listening. If you want to connect with us, feel free to leave a comment or tweet at us at 3playcast on Twitter. Brean and I will probably take your criticisms to heart, while Billy will probably outright ignore it. Hope to see you guys next week.